when I speak to men in general, there is something that is up with every man. I mean, it's almost like a human condition. No man has a perfect life. And this is what I talk to when I'm talking about the groups to people who haven't necessarily been in therapy or haven't necessarily been in a group. It's just like, oh, and they like sort of almost banter it off as being a bit like woo woo and being a bit out there. But what I'm saying is that actually it's normal for men. Like if you go back to the tribes, if you look historically about how men interacted hundreds of years ago, it was actually very normal for men to sit around a fire and actually talk out what was happening, probably only in a mile radius around them, but they had that conversation. They were able to express. The tribal leaders led and allowed the men around that fire to have the time to actually express what was going on in their lives. And for me, there needs to be a place in society for this to re-engage with men and for men to feel re-engaged with, that goes just beyond the mental health discussion. It's actually like, how do we even avoid getting into the mental health discussion? How are we going to actually create a healthier society? So for me, one of the elements of creating the privileged man, the people who are feeling that something is just out of line, something is just not quite right, those are the people who are also feeling massive, massive benefits of it, because they're going through life thinking that way of life is just completely normal, because that's what my dad did, or that's what my friends are doing. And then suddenly you get into a group of conscious men who are making deliberate choices about their lives to make them a happier, more fulfilling life. And things can change in a moment.
Yeah, what you're facilitating there, so I agree with everything you just said, Pete. What you're facilitating there is a safe space for people to talk about their experiences. Now, what we know about mental health issues, even when they're subclinical, so they're not disorders, they're just difficulties, they're things that we're finding challenging in life. If our tendency is to be introspective and to contain it within ourselves, we're missing an opportunity. And we're also building the pressure that's within us, because then we start to try and find the solutions, we overthink, and everything starts to gear up. Simply speaking in a trusted environment about what's going on is phenomenally beneficial. A number of years ago, I joined a very informal men's running group local to where we live down in southwest London. There's about 6 or 7 of us, and usually 3 or 4 of us run each Saturday morning very early. And, ostensibly it's about running and being fit. We're not particularly good runners and not particularly fit. But the benefit is purely social discourse and support and talking about how our week has been and talking about interesting things in the news and just, sharing difficulties we've got with our kids or talking about some of the success that we or our kids have had or whatever. And that's a really good example of a very small group process that has been running now for, I think we're getting on for about 10 years, just started. And it carried on because of the benefit that everybody feels. You're always going to have that kind of reluctance for men sitting down if they haven't had a couple of pints to, make them feel a bit more relaxed. And of course, this should never be done with the influence of alcohol or drugs. It should be done completely natural in the moment. And whilst it might seem quite daunting to take people back to those kind of, those older civilizations where that was done. And it was done in those days because of this power differential within the tribes and the groups. So if a younger man was told to sit down by the fire by the chief, that's what they had to do. We don't have that anymore. We have to find ways of creating that. And I think that's what you're doing very successfully by making it not mandatory, but attractive to come in and see what it's like. And of course, I'm sure your experience has been, once people have been once or twice, their defenses drop, they understand what's there, they're happy to be in that way, single, first names only, anonymized, and it provides them with great support.
So you make a great point, Phil, about the most difficult thing is about actually turning up and saying yes to the first one, because I think once the man comes into a group, the men in there don't have, 2 heads and aren't like, dancing around in ceremonies and all the rest of it. It's just a bunch for us and the privileged man, it's a bunch of normal executive professional guys. And that's in general. And so once a man comes in, they feel pretty much at home. In fact, that's why I do an interview before they join, because I want to make sure for the integrity of the group that they're right for the group. So I'll know instantly that they are or aren't right. And, that's part of the trust process as well. But getting in, and as soon as that man shares and they hear another man share, it just creates that instant level of trust.